Yeah.
Right, I am recording now.
Okay, super. What would you like to know? I mean, I don't know whether we do some of the conversation you've just done, or
Yeah. Let's do some of that then. So I guess basically, introduce yourself to me in terms of
okay,
who you are, what you do, and then
yeah,
immediately, how has this impacted on you?
okay. So my name's Tom Hobden. I'm the artistic director of Unit Dance Company, and I'm an educator, mentor, and all-round community dance pod. Um, I In terms of the impact, I have absolutely no work. I went from 100%, full business to absolutely kind of nothing. All the work that I'm currently doing is my own created work to sort of generate more and stimulus. I work for a number of institutions which pay me as an employee, and I've just learned that I'm being furloughed on those. So that's
Right.
helping in some ways. I am at a university at Laban, and we are continuing to teach all the way to the very, very end if they can, which is incredible. So I'm learning, all kinds of digital platforms to be able to ensure that's happening. And then I was in the middle of a project grant with the Arts Council, which we're kind of, it's that funny word, isn't it? Mothballing it to some extent. But then there's been lots of new commissioning pots that have come out as a response to Corona, which we're looking at, which may then reinvigorate that
Right.
mothballing. It may not mean it has to be the end. It could be the sort of the beginning of it. Like personally, I've been seeing my partner for a shortish amount of time, and he's moved in with me because he was living in central London. My son stays with his mum and then with me, so that's been really odd because he's not been with me quite as much because we've spoken about how we want to not move him very frequently, kind of thing. Also, that's a real kind of double chance of getting it, if you like, really. And both here and at their house, there's two people with asthma, so we're kind of really conscious of trying to kind of avoid that. But the one thing about it, at the very, very beginning of the year, I was quite poorly myself. I just got a virus, but essentially that virus turned into kind of burnout for me. And I had almost stopped for all of January and February. And that has felt like the very best preparation for this, because I learned how to stop and slow down and say no and stuff. So when this started to happen, I was like, oh, I know what this is. This is a bit like what I did at the beginning of the year, kind of thing. And
Right.
that's helped me quite quickly get into this, whereas others have been really, like super in denial about it. So, yeah.
So I guess then, from your perspective, what have been the main challenges of this situation, and then what are the opportunities?
The challenges for me are that I'm very, very fidgety. I really want to get outside, and then everything that about me is sort of social and about people. Everything's about communities and families, and actually we're not allowed to touch. We've got to be 2 meters away from everybody, and I'm finding that hard. And although the onlineness has been phenomenal and really beginning to help connect to people, I think there's still something about waving at my mum through the window or seeing my nephew over a photograph, which is just not working for me. So when people talk about it being a bit like a bank holiday, I'm not connecting to that, because there's this layer of tension across the whole of the UK, which kind of freaks me out. Like, the supermarket is a really politicized place for me, where people are suspicious, covering their mouths, looking at you. When we go for a walk, we tend to thank people when they walk round us, and people are kind of shocked as that happens. They're like, and I'm like, let's just remember to still be polite and care for each other. Let's not be weird about it. Otherwise, we're in this sort of really strange place of, have you got it? Have I got it? Are you going to give it to me? You shouldn't be out, but I'm allowed out, all of that kind of stuff, which is weird. But the pros, which I felt I landed on really, really quickly, I needed a quieter year as an artist. I said right in January, I wonder if 2020 could be a quieter year for me, without drama, without, extraordinary things going on. And this has totally forced my hand into that. So I'm resting more than I
Right.
have ever done for 15, 16 years, and especially owning my own business. So that has been really positive. The other part is that I was beginning to lose a lot of faith after Brexit about communities. I saw breakdown and division, and this again is starting to see people being kind. You are seeing those moments of people posting things through letterboxes to be nice to each other, and you can't walk past a rainbow without it saying "be kind." And I'm just like, well, that's great, and I hope the sentiment continues and carries on for people. So that's great. Connection to nature, you can see that people are just like, what is that about? Like, that's a really incredible
Hmm.
surprise. The fact that everything is sort of still and quiet. I can't get my head around the fact that I don't hear planes all the time, and I don't see cars like listening, waking me up all the
Yeah.
time. It's just
Yeah.
quiet, and you hear people, and nature, for whatever reason, just seems to be like totally flourishing. I mean, it's like, I really hope that the environmentalists will drop on the back of this immediately and will go, "We told you so. We told you so. We said if you'd stop, the world will heal itself." And
Yeah.
look,
Yeah.
haha, here's all the proof. Do you know what I mean? Which feels, positive. Obviously, my partner moved in. It was quite new in our relationship. It's been working out really, really brilliantly. So that's like fantastic,
Fabulous.
to have that. And I think we will look back at this summer as this sort of nuts foundation for whatever, we've done, because who would ever, have that in its place? And then, like, business wise, wow, like, I'm seeing the very best content come out of arts companies that has ever existed. It's like, everybody's been dribbling around for years, and then suddenly this comes up, and they're like, "Oh, we should really put out some good content." And then that's happened. And I have been a techie man for the past sort of 3 years, with online streaming classes, in primary schools, virtual reality, augmented reality, all of these different things have been coming up in my radar. And every time I have a conversation with somebody, they're like, "Nah, I can't do it. Oh, you're too techie. I'm like this." And then 3 weeks later, the world and their wife are really good at tech. You're just like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah.
Like, my mum is like, "What's this house party about? Oh, I can't get the sound to work. How do I make that do that? Oh, that's easy, isn't it?" It's like, yes, I've been telling you this for like years. It's easy. "Oh, I don't like the quality. What could I do to make that better? Oh, you could get this camera. Oh, I'll just buy that." What? You're like,
The
so
stuff
that's
that
been,
Yeah, it's
go
crazy.
on.
It's the stuff that we would fight our parents tooth and nail to go and do or to go and get. And now, like I've got my dad going, "Oh, have you seen this? Like,
Yeah.
what world do we exist in? Like, is this a parallel world where my father is teaching me, a filmmaker, about technology?"
Absolutely. And
Yeah, it's
my mum
insane.
has been so resistant to online banking for years, and I've been trying to persuade her forever. And then she just said to me, "Oh, I've done it." And then we went through the app kind of online, and she said, "This is so useful." She said, "Why would I ever go to a bank?" And I was like, "I bloody told you so."
I
you
know,
know,
right?
is it
Crazy. In fact,
secure? I'm like, it's probably more secure than even walking into a bank now.
well, nobody's going to
So I
rob
said,
you, are they? Like at the cash point. I mean, I've moved
I
all
know.
my banking online, all of it. So even before this, I did it at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And actually, it's like great. It's like, "Oh no, I've got a payment to make." It texts me when my bills are ready, or "You've just paid your gas bill." Perfect. I know exactly where I am. So, in terms of challenges, what about the creative and cultural sector then, from where you are? How, like, how is this impacted us, and how are we going to recover from it? Or will we recover
um,
from it?
f- so the will we recover from it? Culture exists always. It always exists, and it always finds a way. So from my point of view, like, culture comes from boredom. I've never seen more tweets and more replies about people dancing, painting, writing, reading than in their life. More children have painted rainbows in their windows than have probably done for the past 4 or 5 years. So it exists for
Hmm.
itself, and actually comes out of, like I said, boredom. the sense of it being like, how's it going to look in a gallery, in a theatre space, and in those kinds of things, I don't know, you know, like there's the thing that's running around Facebook at the moment, you know, Shakespeare wrote 3 of his plays, you know, in this kind of time. I think it will be there for people. But, you know,
Right.
all of the structured systems we had for, you know, for money and how do we get paid for it are all totally thrown up in the air. And there's a part of me that's just a bit like, I call it being a speedboat. You've got to be a speedboat and not a tanker. And you've just got to go with the changes as it's there.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, being the freelancer, that you're allowed, you know, you can have that opportunity to do it. But here's the big but. And I built reserves for myself a long time ago to protect my son and I. That's what's looking after us right now. And that's why I can say that to you right now. But what I'm really concerned about is all of my colleagues and friends that had no possibility to save money, had no possibility to have a reserve, had no possibility to do that, had no partner to make that happen, or had been spending an extraordinary amount of money just to live in a city to, you know, kind of keep their commissioning work going. And when I'm mentoring these younger people, they're just kind of like, my ability to save is like is zero. So
Yeah.
as much as I want to listen to the advice of building reserves, I don't know how I would kind of, you know, do that. And I think that that's the only way that people are, or a way that people are going to really walk out of this, is whether they had some money in the bank that was going to be there for a rainy day.
Yeah, and I totally hear that actually, because that's completely where we're at right now. I'm because like yourself, I well, kind of going back maybe 5 or 6 years, I dropped the company and went down to being an independent, because I found that having a company was taking me away from kind of creativity, and I was managing creativity as opposed to kind of doing creativity.
Yeah,
So,
100%.
I kind of like, I over a course of a couple of years, we kind of all became freelance. Even I became freelance for my company, and actually, I think that's really saved me in this situation, because it's meant that I was able to be fluid. It meant that all my overheads dropped virtually overnight. It meant that what I was paying on rent just got stuck in an account for the inverted commas the rainy day, or the new piece of kit
Yeah,
when that breaks. Um,
yeah,
and actually, what's happened is like you, I'm completely living off my reserves, and I reckon I can get through the 3 months. But
yeah,
I also have the added advantages that my partner's still working at the minute, so
yeah,
she's working
yeah,
from home, but she's still bringing a wage in.
yeah,
So although it has kept me up at night, and I've been a bit like, it's a very privileged position that I'm coming from, in the sense that, you know, I was brought up to always have a rainy day fund, because and actually you and I have been around quite a while, that we've had those ebbs and flows in our careers. So I guess we've had the benefit of hindsight, that we've learned from that summer that was really, when we first started out, where we had no work. We went, well,
yeah,
actually, we better prepare for that next year. And next year might have been a great summer, so you still had that prepared money, and it just accumulated. That
yeah.
actually now we're able to have that inverted commas little safety net. So I totally get where you're coming from. Doesn't lessen the impact, I don't think, but I get where you're coming from. But like yourself, I've got friends up in the north that have said to me, do you know what? This has highlighted that I don't want to be in the arts world anymore. Like, I've
Right.
got a friend now who's going, actually, this has just brought home to me that I really hate being in that world. I'm going to go do something else.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, it's really sad on one way. I guess it depends how you look at it. On another way, for them, I don't know if it's a reaction, an immediate reaction to go, I can't do this anymore, it's too hard, or if it is genuinely actually it has made me realize this. So I don't know
Yeah.
where that lies at the moment. Um, but yes,
But the
it's in,
thing is that there's so many things with it, because it's sort of like, so my partner's been made redundant. So we were talking about this yesterday, and he's moved up to here as well. So both his job and his home have now, those two big foundations that anybody would have in life, have been destabilized. And I think that that's
Mhm.
what's happening for a lot of people. People have moved
Right.
back in with parents. I keep seeing these big family situations in pictures where, like, going, wow, he must have gone in. And I really think that people's identity is sort of hooked into these places. I mean, I sort of, I haven't felt like I wanted to give up, but I have realised that the plan that I had has to changed massively, like
Yeah.
massively. And some of the dreamy bits that I had about, you know, being a bit more like touring and taking a risk, like I'm going to have to put on hold for a bit. Now, I don't know that it will be like, I don't know, maybe end of 2021, we might be back to where we kind of were, or we were doing with those things. But I'm not sure, because there was one question that was put to me, which was like, I heard politically before Corona that the Arts Council might be knocked on the head,
Yeah, yeah.
and that the managers, more than at any point in their history of the Arts Council, were concerned that this was it. This was them going, and it really made me go, okay, so everybody I work for is kind of subsidised through that, big, small, subsidised through that. So what happens? Do I no longer work anymore? Do I no longer do anything? Is the money no longer exists anymore? And then a number of people came back and they said, no, the government want the arts. They just don't want the Arts Council to kind of divvy the money up, kind of thing. And it made my brain go a bit funny, because I was like, wow, I wonder what that might look like. I wonder if it gets, you know, given out to local councils and stuff. Now, I feel that, you know, the Arts Council in a way have spent all their money, all their reserves, all of their bit. I don't know that I'd want this quite on the record, but I probably would say, if it were to be knocked on the head, it would be very easy now, because, you know, it's all been spent. So we might
Yeah.
all be a little bit out in a wilderness anyway, trying to figure out what we wanted to do. It's sort of a bit like, you know, like funding systems are a blessing and a curse. You know, the more you have, the more you want. The more you have, the more you need it more regularly, kind of thing. It's just like drugs and stuff like that. And we've become sort of so dependent on it. And those bigger people that ask for bigger amounts of money, that are supplying people's jobs, are really, really dependent on it. I mean, I don't know, if you and I go down, it's you and I and our family, and we'll find another job. But, you know, for Dance East, that's, I don't know, 40 people that
Yeah,
is
yeah.
responsible in that way, that
Yeah.
are all coming from that money. And it has made me go a bit like, I wonder if there's another way. I've never felt like this is shit, this is awful. I've just always wondered, I wonder if there's just another way. I wonder,
Yeah.
you know, what it's about. I wonder how, you know, people want to consume art, or want to be involved in culture, or want to be, you know, doing those things. And there's been a few things that have, you know, sort of sprung up for me, but yeah, but I was going to go to some investors, but I'm not going to do that now, because I don't think they've got any money to invest.
Yeah, sure.
Anyway. Hmm.
That actually nicely tails my questions off, actually.
Go on. Oh, okay,
But for
cool.
that, but yeah, no, that kind of it. That yeah, that was yeah, that was yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because like I agree with everything you've said. I agree, and I think, you know, again, I don't know whether we should share. I mean, again, it's just mine and yours opinion, so I don't know how much weight that carries. But I completely hear what you're saying about the Arts Council, and I've thought it myself, of going, because a friend of mine who runs an arts organisation, who's very heavily, for 5 years, has said to me, the Arts Council won't be here in 5 years. And I keep saying, you keep saying this to me every year, and they're still here. And then you go, oh, maybe this year he's right, actually, because yeah, I was really concerned when I saw the funding come out. I thought, brilliant, excellent, you know, great leadership. They've come out really early. It's not perfect, but they're out. Then I read the fine print and went, oh shit, you're using all your reserves for this. If you're using your reserves, like, what do you have left? Because actually, it's very easy for a government to say, we're not giving you 50 million or whatever the amount is this year, we're going to give you 10. And then it's systematically much easier to every year, like they've done with education, every year it drops down a bit. And then all of a sudden, you know, the Arts Council, as we've seen recently, has moved from what it was to much smaller. Kind of, so we have Arts Council North now and Arts Council South East and all that jazz. And soon it'll be Arts Council, 10 people for the entire UK, maybe. Then it just becomes, yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Let me
I
stop
mean,
this
the thing is,
recording.
that's right. Yeah.